Very excited to finally do an update video on Assange because there's been a lot happening. We have Steve Poikonen from Slow News Day to be here to explain it all because, Steve, you're part of the Home Run for Julian tour. You just finished that and are really well versed in this case, which just frankly, unless you're following people like yourself, it's difficult, I think, to get a deep dive into it because there just isn't a lot of mainstream coverage of the case, which again, we're going to get into all of that in this video. I should say though, this is the beginning of our interview, which you will be seeing on YouTube. You'll see it on all of my other platforms too, but on the other platforms, you're going to see the entirety of our conversation. Whereas on YouTube, you're only going to see a very small portion of it. And again, for those of you who may be new to my situation, I was recently suspended and then for no apparent obvious reason and no notification, I was unsuspended. But YouTube's playing games with my channel. And so I'm trying to incentivize people to go over to the other platforms. And hopefully this video, among others, will get you there. So the links are in the description. The full videos will be up on ROKFIN. ODYSEE Locals, my Patreon will get it. But again, we're going to start, Steve, if it's okay, with with the news that this is from, I think Stundin is how they pronounce it, but key witness in Assange case admits to lies in indictment. And I believe they broke the story about this guy, Thorderson, who was one of the key witnesses for the FBI against Assange. So could we start there and then we'll go back in time?
Certainly. So this revelation came, I think, June 22nd overnight going into June 23rd. And I remember because we were in Denver for the Home Run for Julian tour. And that was John and Gabriel Shipton, Julian Assange's father and half-brother, were in the United States for the month of June and the first day of July. 17, I believe, stops over the course of the month, where they were talking to a number of different groups of Americans about how the First Amendment works, which is super weird, but emblematic of where we are in the case. And this man, Sigurdur Thordarson, goes by the nickname Siggy, goes by a couple other online nicknames as well, or went by. He was sent into WikiLeaks by the FBI back in 2011 to infiltrate and destabilize. Thordarson was caught embezzling from WikiLeaks. He was caught impersonating Julian Assange. He did jail time over this. He's done jail time over actively sexually assaulting children. He's been certified by the Icelandic Ministry of Health as a sociopath. And this is the man that the Federal Bureau of Investigation decided would be their guy on the inside for WikiLeaks. There's video that this man shot, Thordarson, of him in the WikiLeaks office so that he could, this was supposed to be a gotcha video, that Julian Assange was in the room while he was communicating, while Siggy Thordarson was communicating with yet another paid FBI informant, Hector Monsegur, who went by the name Sabu, who people familiar with the Lulzsec and anonymous cases of 2011 and 2012 will know the name Sabu because he is the rat who set up a number of cyber activists where they got 10-year sentences. He got rewarded. So Siggy and Sabu, the two people that the FBI has paid to infiltrate and destabilize both WikiLeaks and Anonymous, are talking to each other, pretending to be legitimate. Siggy is pretending to be Julian Assange. Hey, Anonymous should hack a bunch of places for WikiLeaks. Sabu, oh, hey, I'm Anonymous and I would love to do that for you. And this is happening. There's a recording of this. And yet, I don't even know if this has been entered into evidence yet because we haven't got there in the case. We've just determined that because of mental health concerns and U.S. prison conditions, Julian Assange will not be extradited to the U.S. That is now being appealed, but we haven't even got to the part where we can, discredit this witness, even though he's doing a bang up job of doing it himself.
So I was listening to Glenn Greenwald talking about this not too long ago, and he brought up, or maybe it was an RT video, I can't remember totally, but one of them was talking about how Thorderson, like, contacted the FBI because he was basically wanting to do a deal so he would get out of some other charges. And so he was looking for immunity, which I believe they gave him. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But the other guy that you're bringing up, what do you have any idea how that one went down? Because it sounds like this guy from the beginning, if what I heard was correct, was using this information in order to get himself a deal, not necessarily because, and just, let's just say that he didn't just make it up, but it seemed even just from the beginning that he was suspect, that he was trying to make some kind of deal with the FBI.
Well, and he was. I mean, this is again a convicted pedophile. This is a man who, at least in Siggy, who the FBI knew full well going in what he was and what he was capable of and what he would do if they gave him immunity. And they didn't care. They gave him immunity, stopping WikiLeaks, making sure that private citizens, ordinary people, have access to primary source documents where we can read it, digest it, and come to our own conclusions about it, as opposed to having a multimillionaire tell us how we're supposed to think and feel about it. That is seen as much more threatening than letting someone run around at assaulting some children in Iceland. So
I guess big picture for this, when you have somebody, and question about it too, I read it in this article. I've seen it in some other places. Have there been any statements from the FBI or from the U.S. government in reaction to this?
No. I haven't seen an official FBI response to this. To my knowledge, nobody in the mainstream media has asked the FBI about it. And if anyone from a satellite publication or from an independent publication has contacted the FBI's press office for an answer, they haven't been given one. The FBI typically doesn't comment on these things unless they're forced to. And the mainstream media in this country, and unfortunately too many people in independent media, don't have the will to hold anyone in power accountable because they're all too busy looking for access.
All right. When this happens while you're on this tour, right? Didn't this news break while you guys were on the...
Yeah, we broke it at the Denver Press Club on the afternoon of the 23rd.
Okay, are you thinking that this is going to become big news and maybe change things, and then it just isn't? Or did you think that from the beginning, like, this will just be another big bombshell that the media doesn't cover?
Well, I mean, yes and no, because when you're an activist, especially when you're an activist around something like Julian Assange or WikiLeaks or press freedom, you have to maintain like at least a little core of hope in your heart, albeit surrounded by a very thick, nearly impenetrable wall of cynicism. There has to be a little bit of hope in there. So of course, yeah, because when this story hit, Julian Assange's father and brother are in the country on a tour talking to people about things exactly like this. And they were getting, Allison, mainstream media interviews. They had just gone on MSNBC. They had just gone on Tucker Carlson. They were going on somebody else's, like there were mainstream shows that they were going on. To my knowledge, they stopped doing mainstream interviews as soon as this came out. They had just done MSNBC. This news comes out. The next biggest mainstream interview they have is almost a week later with Crystal Ball. And that's it. So yes, we thought that this would be earth-shattering because it is. The FBI's star witness that they gave immunity to recants his testimony while admitting that he kept committing crimes under an immunity deal from the FBI. Crickets.
Can you explain what his accusations were that have now been I guess called into question because he's, and did he say this in a court of law, or did he tell Stundin, or I'm having a hard time understanding like where he exactly did this, where he was admitting that he falsified this information.
I mean, it's there's an admission in the article.
So was he talking specifically to them?
Yes, he was specific. He was being interviewed by the Stundin is an Icelandic magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Thordarson is a resident of Iceland. So he went to, like national media there for this interview. We don't know why, Allison. We don't, because so best that we can discern is that either the FBI was promising him things that they weren't delivering on, or they were trying to coerce more out of him and he wasn't willing to give it. But again, we're dealing with someone who has been certified by the Icelandic health board, certified sociopath. So we're not dealing with someone who necessarily thinks in the same terms that we do, or thinks along the same lines as we do. So whatever his reasons for ratting himself out at this point, or trying to, discredit the FBI, I can't speak to. I really can't. I don't know how a sociopathic pedophile's mind works. I just don't, and the real thing that sucks about this is that if the Department of Justice wants to ignore it completely, all they have to do is say, well, this is, a criminal witness trying to get out of something else, and it doesn't change the veracity of his testimony. It just means that we can't work with him in the future.
Yeah. Well, so it does say, so and for people who may not know, it does seem like one of the main reasons that he was a key witness, or whatever he is at this point, is that he was alleging that Assange had instructed him to break the law, essentially. And so, moving him from a position of I received material and published it, to actively engaging in hacking, essentially. And what they're saying here is Thordarson now admits to Stundin that Assange never asked him to hack or access phone recordings of MPs. His new claim is that he had, in fact, received some files from a third party who claimed to have recorded MPs and offered to share them with Assange without having any idea what they actually contained. He claims he never checked the contents of the files, or even if they contained audio recordings, as his third-party source suggested. Further admits the claim that Assange had instructed or asked him to access computers in order to find any such recordings is false. So,
and that's a third of the Department of Justice's case against Julian Assange. Or that compromises half of that third. The other part of that is Sabu, the guy who we were just talking about, Hector Monsignor, the guy who says, I was told, Anonymous was told by Julian Assange to hack these targets. That's what's happening right here, is that Thordarson, by his own admission, by his own, court case, got caught impersonating Julian Assange. The person that he was talking to was Sabu, where he's saying, hey, I'm Julian Assange, and we want Anonymous to hack these high-profile targets for our publication. And Sabu going, I would love to engage in criminal activity on behalf of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks.
Right.
And why, and so the one thing in the anonymous hacktivist world that is a mantra, that is a commandment that most people break, because commandments are there to be broken, let's be honest. But let's try to remember this one and keep it close to your heart. There is no security, there is only OPSEC. And 999 times out of 1,000, what gets a hacker caught is him opening his mouth. or him running his mouth to the wrong person. In Sabu's case, that didn't happen. In Sabu's case, he did ultimate rookie OPSEC move, which is he went into an internet chat room with his personal IP address and his personal handle. And a lot of these IRCs heavily monitored by the FBI, especially in 2010, 2011, 2012. So Sabu goes in naked, no VPN, no nothing, no security, and gets a visit from the FBI. The FBI come to his house and they're like, hey, you got two choices. You can go to prison for the rest of your life or you can work for us. And so he immediately starts working for them. That's when he gets in contact with Thordarson. Thordarson, pretending to be Assange, says, hey, go, hack stuff for WikiLeaks. Sabu then turns to an offshoot of Anonymous called LulzSec, L-U-L-Z, for lulz. And they just go on a hacking rampage. They hack everybody. And a lot of that does get published in WikiLeaks. They hacked HB Gary, they hacked Stratfor, they hacked Sony. Like, all of these things just came flooding out, including the document from Stratfor that lays out the case and how they're going to approach Julian Assange way back in 2012. And it says, move him from country to country for the next 25 years, keep him tied up in litigation, go after his finances, go after his family, go after anyone in the sphere, and never let this man, breathe free air again. Doesn't matter if we convict him. We just need to keep him tied up in court. The process becomes the punishment. And that's what they've done.
Yeah, I heard somebody saying that earlier, and it does seem like that's what's going on here. And if you think about it, I mean, how long has it been? 10 years?
Yeah, it has. The UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention found that Assange's time in the embassy, the 7.5 years that he had spent there, constituted arbitrary detention, because illegal and arbitrary detention, because he couldn't even leave to see a doctor. He couldn't leave the embassy for medical reasons. He was, for all intents and purposes, being detained there, confined to a room and a half for 7.5 years. If that's not being detained, I'm not sure what is.
Do you think it's both or one of the other, punishment or keeping him in a place where he can't cause any more trouble for the security state?
Well, it's both. I mean, the United States' desire to exact revenge in general, long and storied. I mean, we've got a history of arbitration, I guess, but whether legal or violent, through military force, from our founding. So the U.S. making it personal, we've got that on record. We've got Hillary Clinton saying, why can't we just drone the guy? And then everybody in the room laughs and claps. We've got, in the same week, Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden, people who are supposed to be on opposite sides of the fence, using the exact same phrase to describe Julian Assange. This man is a high-tech terrorist, they said, in the same week, using the exact same talking point that came from Hillary Clinton's State Department. So it is very, very, very recognizable, I think, and something that we can see historically, in that the U.S. runs from a vengeance-based perspective in its justice system. Yes, personal, but yes, my God, why wouldn't you want to stop a news outlet that formed it for the specific reason? This is according to Julian Assange. WikiLeaks was founded to shrink the distance from when a whistleblower or a leaker has information and the public being able to read and digest and access it. So traditionally, if somebody had, for example, the Pentagon Papers, it took a very long time from the point to when Ellsberg first contacted a journalist to when the Pentagon Papers were released. And even longer for us to get future disclosures. So Assange saw this and went, there's got to be a way to where if a whistleblower, you know, especially in the age of the internet, downloads some information and gives it to a publishing outlet, the publishing outlet needs to be able to have a method of verification by which they can do it rapidly and accurately and then get it out to the public immediately while they still have time to do something about the information. So that's a threat, not just to the US, but to all authoritarian regimes and to all corporations that engage in malfeasance or fraud or waste or abuse.
Okay, I have a lot to ask you about, and we're going to talk about, actually, since you brought up the Pentagon Papers case, we're going to talk about an attorney ad on my channel who worked on that case, who questions whether, you know, Assange took it too far, and does he just want anarchy, and is there a line for what publishers should be able to publish related to security details. I want to show you a clip of Matt Orfala asking Jim Acosta about Assange to just get your perspective on his response, and then we'll talk mainstream media. You know, a bunch of other stuff, but I am going to wrap it up here for YouTube. Again, everybody, if you want to watch the rest of our conversation, you got to go over to the other platforms. The links are in the description. Steve, is there anything else you'd like to say for the greater good of the YouTube audience?
Just
other than get the F off.
Yeah, just get rid of that YouTube account. Come find all of us over on ROKFIN. We are leading the way over there. Free thinking media that is delivering content from outside of the narratives that are created to divide and distract us. That's not what you're going to find over there. It's not what you're going to find on Odyssey. Really, only on YouTube are you like you're held captive by narrative managers, and we would like you to free yourselves. So please go check us out over there.